There's a lot happening right now at Jamestown City Hall as the search for a new police chief continues and officials work to continue to guide the area through the COVID-19 pandemic. Joining us on the show is Jamestown Mayor Eddie Sundquist to talk more about all that is happening. Mayor, it's great to have you here. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much for having me.
First off, the search for the city's next police chief is on. So far, how has that been going and how many applications have you received?
So at this time, we've received a little over 30 applications for the police chief position. The application period is still open until the end of the month. Once that happens, we'll start to review all the applications to ensure that people have the items that are required as part of the police chief position. And those that are will then be moved on to an interview process. As you know, and as your viewers may know, we've appointed an acting interim chief as we start to continue the search, which we believe will take some time to make sure we have the right fit in a police chief for the city of Jamestown.
Are you looking for a local candidate or someone with experiences from outside the area?
So right now we're open to all applicants, whether they're internal or external. I think it's important that we're able to actually look at and interview people from all different walks of life and from all different places. We want to make sure at this time and in this place that we've got the right candidate for the job. And whether that's an internal or an external candidate, we want to make sure we've done our due diligence and looked at everyone that we can as part of the process.
Now, the Jamestown Justice Coalition and subsequent protests surrounding the death of George Floyd have brought a renewed call for change here in local government. How was working with that coalition, and what are they calling on your administration to do?
So we've had a few conversations with the coalition. I think the coalition itself is trying to really better understand its mission and where it's going. But the coalition, as well as every other citizen group that reaches out to the city, we meet with, we talk, we try to better understand their position and make informed decisions going forward for the entire community. We've had some initial conversations with this specific group, and we're hoping that we can work with them and other community agencies as we start to move towards police reform here in the city and across the state, as well as just dealing with social issues as they pop up.
Now, I know recently you pretty much led with Jamestown City Council members a Juneteenth event where we social distanced the best we could, wore masks. I'm sure COVID has played a role into how much we can actually do in the city, but having these events and being available for the citizens, why is that so important for you to get out there and march with them?
My role as mayor is to ensure that we have the most vibrant community possible here in the city of Jamestown. That means I need to be with our community. I am a member of the community, just like everyone else that's part of it. And so I need to be there, and I want to be there with each of these groups as they start to move our city forward, as we progress as a new modern city here in New York State. I took this job, I ran for this office because I wanted to progress the city of Jamestown. And that's what we're doing. We understand COVID has kind of thrown a wrench in everything and has made the first 7 months of my administration super fun. But for the most part, my job as mayor has not changed. It's here to be a part of the community, to support individuals and groups and organizations, and to ensure, as I said at the beginning, that we have the most vibrant community possible.
Now, the Justice Coalition has really pushed recently to have the Jamestown High School Raider Mascot removed. Where do you stand on that issue, and do you think that the logo should be changed?
Well, my understanding in talking with the new superintendent is there will be a committee getting together to really discuss it. The reality is that if there is an issue with cultural appropriation, we need to seriously look at that and actually, make some decisions, actually make some change. As a proud high school graduate of Jamestown Public Schools, I understand the passion and the energy behind the Red Raider. But when we have our Native American colleagues telling us that this is the wrong cultural appropriation, it's time we start to look at our policies and make some serious changes.
And we've seen a lot of emotions get pretty heated behind the logo, where folks are calling it a racist logo and are really upset. And on the other side of the spectrum is you have people who say, well, there is a lot of heritage behind it, and we weren't trying to be mean spirited with having it. How are we going to be able to include all of that into the conversation?
Well, these conversations are uncomfortable, and they always are. Just when we talk about race, just like we talk about things that make us prideful. But the reality is for in terms of this logo, it's not a logo that defines us. It's not a logo that defines who you are and what school you went to. It's the pride behind it. It's the experience behind it. I didn't go along saying that I was, I did say that I was a Red Raider because we did. But the reality is Jamestown is what I'm most proudful about. I'm proud of being an alumni of Jamestown High School. I don't need to be a Red Raider in order to be a proud alumni.
So, do you think that if the community decided it was the right move to change the logo, would be a good thing for people here?
Absolutely. I think that for everything we need to ensure that we understand what the ramifications are as a community. And sometimes having things that culturally appropriate aren't the best for our community, and we need to grow as the times grow.
Now, part of the changing of the times, you recently reestablished the Jamestown Civil Rights Commission, and you told us previously your office received an overwhelming amount of applications from those who wanted to join it. Have you narrowed that search down, and when will the commission
Sure.
officially start to meet?
So we're working on it. We received over 80 applications. I think alone I've done probably about 50 interviews. So we're getting through there. I've talked to each and every applicant that has applied and that lives in the city of Jamestown. We did receive some applications where people live right outside the city. They don't realize they're not actually a city resident, and so there's a disqualification there. But in all of the conversations, I find that people have a lot of energy and passion for making some real change in the city. So I'm excited to bring back the Human Rights Commission to help us as an administration, help me as a mayor, and our city council better understand what's going on in our community and to deal with issues of race, religion, nationality, and ethnicity as we try to navigate through the next couple of years. We are working very hard to finalize all of the interviews and the applications. My hope was to get it done by the end of this month, but with so many people and being able to interview and talk to each person, we've kind of had to put that a bit on hold. My intention is to have the final list of names for our August voting session for the City Council and hopefully have its first meeting early September once the commission members are installed. But as I've gone along and told everyone that's applied, we're going to be creating working groups so that even if you're not a member of the commission, you can still join a working group and help push the city towards what you're most passionate about. Whether that's disability inclusion, whether that's educating the community, whether that's police reform, and a whole bunch of other topics. I don't want to lose this energy and this fight that people have. We need to continue it forward and make the city better.
Yeah, and I think that's the big takeaway from seeing all of this public participation, Mayor, is for a long time, city council meetings would only include the news media and a few people who were there to talk about specific issues, where we saw hundreds of people take to the streets and say that it's time for change and they want to be the change. For the commission specifically, are they going to have any power within the city, or are they merely an advisory to government?
Well, the commission itself has the power to not only investigate, but also to make recommendations for immediate changes to my office as well as the city council. We have to, as you probably know, and as well as your viewers, we have to undergo a review of our police practices in order to retain state funding by next year. As part of that, we're going to ask the commission to help us through that process, help us to evaluate our policies and procedures along with our community, and ensure that we're doing the right thing at this time. We're also asking them just to help us be better as a community. What can we do to ensure that we understand each other's cultures, that we're learning from one another, but we're also ensuring that we are working with one another during this time? So, to an extent, they are advisory, but to another extent, they're actually going to be producing the policies that the city council will vote on to make change in the city as we go forward.
Now, switching gears a bit, COVID-19 has presented several challenges, both medically and financially. For many local governments, the loss of tax revenue is a big problem. Here in Jamestown, you had to make several hard decisions to try to make up the difference. How are we looking financially at this point, and do you anticipate continuing to make adjustments going forward?
So it's no secret that we've talked about having to cut almost $4 million from our budget in order to avoid a deficit. At this point, we've only gone through the first phase, which was a cut of $1.2 million. And trust me, it's hurt us all. We've had to cut back on road construction projects. We've had to close parts of park bathrooms and fields. We've had to really look at what we are doing as core operations in the city, and our residents are noticing, and we've had to take a tough tact. But the reality is that we don't know how much more we have to cut yet. We anticipate that the state is going to reduce our state aid, which amounts to about $6 million here in the city, by 20%. They've already cut our road repair budget by 20%, but we just don't know if the state's going to withhold its payment for us in general municipal aid. That is going to be a huge trigger on whether we are going to need more cuts going into the next phase of our restructuring plan. We are waiting just like every other municipality. I just got off a call with our other mayors and elected officials across the congressional district. And I'll tell you, every one of us was complaining about how we don't know what the state's going to do, and we need direct federal aid in order to continue. We're paying the most out of everyone in police, fire, and public safety, and have gotten $0 to support the work that we're doing controlling COVID.
Yeah, and I know recently Senator Schumer was in Olean, and he said that sometimes the state does have sticky fingers when it comes to that aid, and he's working on getting aid directly to local governments. So certainly something we're going to keep our eye on. Finally, Mayor, we thank you for joining us today. The governor has said that if residents do not follow this social distancing and continuing to wear face coverings when out and about, the pandemic could get a lot worse. We've seen a spike in COVID cases recently where county officials attributed that to young people. What is the pulse here in Jamestown? Are people following guidelines? And what's your message to those who don't?
Well, I think the first message is wear a mask. It's simple, it's easy. We've been giving them out. The United Way has been giving them out. You can find them in a lot of different places. But what I have noticed is the city of Jamestown, very early on in COVID, was doing what we've asked them to do, which was stay home, wear a mask. As the weather has started to get better, people started to migrate more. I think the vast majority of our residents are still doing that. But the problem comes into play when you go to parties and events and things like that. Yes, there has been restrictions lifted on going to people's homes and to have a party and go to different events, but you still need to wear a mask. You still need to maintain social distance. So the rise in numbers we start to see are from people that are not doing that. They're actively going to these places. They're not wearing a mask. They're getting close to one another, and it's causing a spread of the virus. So as much as we love going to a good party and we love celebrating the holidays and the events, we need to be careful. We need to be cognizant, and we need to still continue to wear a mask and social distance.
All right, Jamestown Mayor Eddie Sundquist joining us today. Mayor, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.